Today, I'm joined by Dr. Carl Rothschild. Dr. Rothschild is the founder, researcher, and owner of Trifecta Light Technologies, a leading innovator in LED infrared light therapeutic technology. Since 1979, Dr. Rothschild has dedicated his career to helping patients achieve optimal health through his successful chiropractic practice. A lifelong learner, he explored various healing modalities before focusing on the transformative potential of LED technology. His pioneering work led to the development of numerous LED products for various companies, ultimately refining his expertise in infrared red light therapy. Dr. Rothschild, I believe I can call you Dr. Carl.
Dr. Carl's good.
But I got to get my permission first. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really looking forward to hearing all about this amazing information that you've got for us.
Yeah, I mean, first I'll tell you that what gets people successful is typically passion and belief. And man, am I passionate about this and unbelievably strongly believe in this. So what happened was it was the early 70s and I was a bit of a hippie. I had my hair down to here and but I was a great student. I mean, very good student, let's put it that way. And I really could have done a bunch of different things, but chiropractic kind of tickled my fancy. As I said, I was kind of a hippie of sorts. And my definition of that is that I was less interested in making money than I was in a career of helping people and whatnot. And I'm so thrilled that I went through the route that I did. Believe me, not everybody supported me when I decided to become a chiropractor. So it was 1978 when I started as a chiropractor. And that brought me, by the way, I was in Brooklyn, New York. I moved all the ways out to Los Angeles to go to, at the time, the best chiropractic school, graduated in 78 and started in 79 as a chiropractor. And I loved it. I had a lot of fun and success, meeting some of the greatest mentors in my profession that helped me along the way. But then about 20 years into my practice, so that was about 26 years ago, give or take, I was introduced to red light therapy, and I had this actually orthopedic surgeon out of USC out here telling me, shine a light on somebody and it's going to make a difference. And I don't know what you guys think, but it's easy to think that that's crazy. Shine a light on somebody and yeah, it's going to cure them. And so I didn't go into this wholeheartedly, let me put it that way, but I tried it in my practice. And the truth is, it revolutionized my business, it revolutionized my practice. I was able to heal things I never believed possible. And then and equipment gets, as what happens in the world of technology and even in the world of sports, when you have a piece of equipment and starts to be a business, like when I started in racquetball, the rackets were stinky. And then as more and more people started to getting into racquetball, the rackets got phenomenal. I mean, it was amazing. And I don't know if you can get the analogy, but the same thing happened with red light therapy. And the equipment that we used way back in the beginning, which was the state of the art at that time, is thousands of times weaker than what we use now. And it's just gotten stronger and stronger and better and more effective, more efficient, covering more areas of the body. And I was having a lot of fun. And then about 13 years ago, a different company. Now, at that point, I was only using near infrared. And we'll talk about the difference between red, near infrared, infrared by itself, and far infrared. But there was one company that was using red. My company was strictly near infrared. Well, we knew that red was not as healing as near infrared, so we were sticking to near infrared, but it was the company that was doing red light that accidentally discovered that there was an element of red light that it actually could help with fat loss. Now, if you don't think fat loss is big, just stay home one time and watch television and see how many commercials are about taking some injection that everyone thinks is fine and has no side effects, and it does, and it's going to be shown to be dangerous to the pancreas and whatnot. But fine, people will do anything to lose weight. I've had, I said, listen, you could cut off your arm and lose 20 pounds real quick. Not necessarily the smartest thing. Well, now we were introduced to something that was all natural. It didn't harm anything. It didn't cut anything. You didn't put anything in the body that doesn't belong there. We didn't yank anything out that does, and it helps with fat loss. And I'll talk about how it works later, but that got me going. And so I decided with my partner to start manufacturing equipment. And that was fun. And we were involved with lasers and pads and panels and stuff. And we were having nice results. At the time, we thought they were great results until we learned what was really going to get us great results. And again, by accident, there was this thing called COVID. And COVID hit, and our practitioners wanted less physical contact between the patient and the provider. And we developed a bed. Now, the bed is incredible because you don't need staff. So you don't have to pay $1,500 to $2,500 a month for a staff member to actually provide the service. The patient gets in and out of bed themselves. I have a bed here and I get in and out myself. And so that was it. We thought it would be a good substitute for what we had up till then. And everything was fine. But then within the first month of us having delivered the first series of beds, oh my God, we started getting feedback that was at minimum surprising. Let's put it that way. So for example, and I want everybody to pretend like whether you are or not, pretend like you're a health practitioner. And I'm going to call you up, or someone's going to call you up and they're saying, listen, I'm having a heart attack once, if not twice a week. And this has been going on for 12 years. What can you do for me? What could you do? What could anybody do?
Is that even a thing? I didn't know that people could have multiple heart attacks a week.
I didn't either. So what had happened 12 years ago, they implanted a defibrillator into this gentleman's chest. And every time he died, it would zap him back to life. But by the time we met him, which was 12 years in, and now imagine they implanted the defibrillator 12 years ago. So even way before that, he was struggling quite a bit. So at any rate, with that said, when we met him, he was on his last leg. I mean, he had no energy, no clarity. Many of the tissues in the body were suffering tremendously. He described like he used to be an athlete when he was younger. So just to walk around the block would take forever. And he would describe how little old ladies on the walkers, excuse me, that's what he said, would zoom past him compared to what he could do, because it would take him forever to walk around the block. So the practitioner calls me up and says, I don't even know if I should treat this guy. I don't want him having a heart attack in my office. And I said, listen, just one thing we know for sure with red light therapy is you couldn't hurt. You can't hurt somebody with it. In the 50 years that they've studied this technology, there's never been a recorded side effect.
Wow.
Who's ever heard of such a thing that could be so helpful, but the worst thing that'll happen is nothing. So I said, we know the worst that'll happen is nothing. So treat him for just 5 minutes and stay in the room the whole time. So that patient goes home that night, and that was nearly 2 years ago. And would you believe, has not had a heart attack since.
Wow.
2 years ago. Hundreds of heart attacks, no heart attacks. Hundreds of heart attacks and dying to everything's come back to life. His energy, as he described it, is through the roof. His erectile dysfunction is no longer an issue. Everything in him, he also had black raised moles on his face. They're gone. Clean as a whistle, so to speak. And did I expect that? No. I expected maybe something. But every time we get faced with these unusual situations, we go, okay, try it. Right? What's the worst that'll happen? With any of you, in 6 visits, you'll know. And it's rare that in 6 visits, the person doesn't see a significant change. They might need a lot more visits, like with the very advanced kind of issues, but typically within 6 visits, they'll see the difference, and sometimes just a couple of visits. So this guy, it only took him one visit to know that this was huge. Then we had a lady that she sent me an email, and it goes something to the effect of she had Lyme disease, and it
Mm-hmm.
the word she used was ravaged. It ravaged her body, all the organs and glands and all the things that she described, including the gastric system, her heart, her liver, everything. And so, I had to call her up, and I called her up and I said, what's up? What's going on? I had no idea that she was about to describe 16, at least 16 serious conditions that she had that have all been resolved. So not only did she have the Lyme disease, which is resolved,
Mm.
she also had terrible shingles. She had 20 years of diarrhea only, now normal bowel movements. But she also had three forms of psoriasis. She had guttate psoriasis, plaque psoriasis, and she had psoriatic arthritis. And one of the things that it wound up getting into her eye, and her eye, the swelling in one eye was normally it's supposed to be around 10 to 12 pressure, and
Mm-hmm.
her pressure in one eye was 180.
Oh, wow.
And after just a couple of weeks of treatment, it's normal, down to
Wow.
10 or something like between 10 and 12. And we're talking about anything in the eye, floaters. I've heard all kinds of amazing things. But getting back to her, she also had the psoriasis. So she had terrible rash across the forehead, horrible, ugly. And she constantly had burning, bleeding, and painful ears. It was always
Crikey.
bleeding and painful. Then
She was
also down
literally
both,
falling apart.
she was a mess. Down
Wow.
both arms, both legs. And as she does it, I'm going to send you these videos,
Mm.
and you'll see when you look at them, she goes, look, it's all gone. It's all, she goes like this. It's all, so if you get a chance to watch it, so
Okay.
her eyes, her mouth, I mean, everything. So yeah, I know I come across like, this is nuts. Are you crazy?
Mm.
And it does sound crazy. And once you learn why it works, you'll see why it works on every part of your body.
Yeah. Bef-
So
Sorry, I was going to say before we get stuck into the what is, what red light therapy is, and you can talk us through that. I was just sort of wondering how your practice has changed. Like, because obviously you're treating all sorts of different things now. So do people still come to you specifically for chiropractic issues or treatment, and you use the red light as part of that?
I'm
Or
not
do
in
people
practice
come with
any.
you to you like for anything?
I'm not seeing patients any longer. I'm
Okay.
too busy with all this other
Yeah,
stuff.
right.
After 40 something years, I would not be fair to my patients
Mm,
if I still kept I had to sell the practice.
okay.
But we have hundreds of locations all over the country, and I
Okay.
guide them as to what to do. And we never tell anybody to stop doing what they're doing. Just add this to their practice. So if you're an acupuncturist, we're not saying stop that,
Mm.
but add this to your practice.
It's like a complementary therapy, as a complementary therapy to whatever
Correct.
they're already doing.
And a good example is that if somebody has a misalignment, the lights are not going to align, fix that
Yeah.
misalignment.
Yeah, sure.
And so it's imperative that the person also get proper alignment of their spine. We call it an adjustment.
Mm.
I've had people who I know for a fact that they needed to see a chiropractor. So the ideal thing is to have a chiropractor that has one of our beds, or an acupuncturist that has one of these beds. So
Mm.
we have hundreds of locations all over the country, and yet and still, because this is a big country, you don't realize how big it is until you have hundreds of practice businesses out there, and yet and still we have cities that don't have one of our beds. What I'm telling you is that when we first started selling these beds, there was a phrase that people use that I'd heard occasionally, but now we're hearing it a lot more often, and it goes like this: thank you for giving me my life back.
Mm.
Why do you think I started in chiropractic in the 70s? I wanted that more than anything. I mean, I don't mind making money, but if I made money and wasn't helping people, it wouldn't feel great.
Mm.
And if I was helping people and not making any money, that wouldn't feel so great either. But if this is a beautiful blend of helping people, and people are willing to pay for you to help them in ways like one guy, he described it as life altering. Life
Wow.
altering. I love that phrase because that's what it does.
Mm.
It takes somebody in the every category. So there are 8 categories of that we talk about, and the trifecta is skin, fat, and healing. So when we first started, we didn't have the bed, and it was local skin. I'm sorry. So it was a local. It was face, fat, and healing. But then when we went with the bed, we realized that when you bathe the whole body at the same time, that's when you get these amazing results. And
Okay.
you're bathing it with medical grade, high end lights that can be very strong but not hot. Remember, heat is the enemy.
Mm.
And so some of the cheaper equipment out there don't have the way of controlling the power, don't have the way of pulsing the wave. You want to pulse the wave to create a resonating frequency that as you may know, that tissues in your body resonate with different frequencies.
Mm.
And my favorite, as a starter, I just tell everybody we're going to use 528 hertz. And those of you that don't know much about resonating frequencies, just go to Google and put in 528 HZ hertz, 528 HZ, which is hertz. That's 528 beats per second. 528 hertz healing energy. There'll be.
It will come up with something.
Mostly it's on YouTube, and you'll hear this beautiful sound. And what I tell people to do is to get I have one right next to me, so I have to be careful. An Alexa, and you say that name, play 528 hertz healing energy in a loop mode, and it's beautiful. But you don't have to play 528. You can play, there are a lot of different frequencies. And when someone gets our equipment, we train them on all the different frequencies. But as a beginner, I like to just start with 528 because that is going to work typically on just about every condition that we have out there. So you want to be able to power.
So you can program the bed to deliver that sound frequency or light frequency?
Light frequency.
Okay.
But we include a sound generator.
Okay.
You'll have, in fact, there's 3 types of vibration. I'm sorry, three types of frequency that we include. So you get the bed with the light, you get the sound generator, and you get a vibratory generator as well that will give you different frequencies as well.
Okay.
So yeah, those things are beautiful and
amazing.
Wonderful.
Okay. So let's talk about what is red light therapy. You mentioned when you were in your previous role as a practicing chiropractor that you used local red light therapy for face, fat, and what was the third?
Now, when I first started, it was just healing only.
Just healing only. So how did that work?
It was a laser.
Okay.
That we would put on a shoulder or an elbow, a wrist, something like that. So it was a laser that had a head the size of an ultrasound head.
Yeah.
Then we created pads that when we found out about the fat loss, we created pads. And then the bed was because of COVID. And once we did the bed, as I had said, what we learned is that when you bathe the whole body at the same time with this very high-end medical grade lights, that you're going to see these unbelievable results. So I suppose, first of all, I want to talk about the word red light therapy.
Yeah.
Red light therapy, the way I use it, is a combination of red light and near infrared, not far infrared, near infrared. So when people use the term infrared in this country, they mostly mean far infrared. So an infrared sauna, an infrared, whatever, they're all far infrared. A near infrared doesn't get hot. Far infrared is all about getting hot.
Yeah.
And so it allows you to get deep penetrating heat, but it doesn't allow you to do anything else. It's not going to give you long-term changes. Near infrared is the miracle wavelength. But I first want to talk about red light. So there are 2 mechanisms. One's a fat loss, that's red light. And the other is the near infrared with a combination of red to a degree for everything else. That's all the healing, even the mental stuff we have. You can look it up. There's all kinds of psychological success So we had this one lady, she wrote me a note that says, if this is how normal people feel all the time, I can't believe I've been missing out.
Wow.
And
Mentally, like it's got mental benefits as well.
she was so highly depressed and
Wow.
hated her life, and now she doesn't.
Is
Yeah,
that
the light.
associated with like when people have the seasonal affective disorder?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that
exactly.
makes complete sense then.
So now I'm going to talk to you about how it works. And I'm going to tell you that whether you believe in God or evolution or whatever, there is a miracle
Mm,
that allows an element of sunlight to have such an amazing effect on us. So we've known for hundreds of years that laying out in the sun is not a bad idea.
mm.
However, it's very weak compared to what we now can do. So imagine taking the sun and magnifying it thousands of times and driving it into the person's body to be able to accomplish what we're doing here. And that's what these lights do. So there are two elements, two regions of light. There's the red that we're going to talk about in a minute, and there's the near infrared.
Mm.
So let's talk about fat loss and red light.
Okay.
What they learned, now this was a little over a decade ago, by accident, they found that they realized that red light can help with fat loss. And it was huge. I mean, when you look at light therapy, you can see the bumps that happen as more and more people getting more and more involved. And in the beginning, there was just a couple of us. I want to say a couple. There weren't that many people doing red light therapy uh, back 26 something years ago. But then as the equipment got better, there was a little bit of a bump and things would happen. But then when they learned that it's helped with weight loss, it went like that.
Right.
Right. So now we're at a new level with that much interest. It grew dramatically. And then, as I said, once we created the bed, it took it to an even higher level. So it's just witnessing how this whole thing works. But let's get back to what red light does. So what they thought was that the red light would emulsify or liquefy the fat, but that's not what happens. What they learned was that the fat cell wall temporarily becomes more porous and allows the contents of the fat cells to leak out in the surrounding tissue. And so it doesn't damage anything. You're not freezing it, boiling it, lasering it. You're not ultrasonic cavitation or radio frequency. Those are all about bursting and killing fat
Yeah.
cells.
Okay.
And we're not into that. I'm a chiropractor that's interested in not putting anything in the body that doesn't belong there, or yanking anything out that does belong there, and not doing any damage. Fat cells are not junk. They have a lousy name, but fat cells are essential tissue that you need. They help with stem cell production, hormone production, and yes, they do store fat, and they also store toxins.
Mm.
So at any rate, the first phase that happens when they're exposure to that red light is that the fat content, some of it, gets leaked out into the surrounding tissue. And then with our unique protocol, we move that fat away from the fat cells, and eventually to the liver for use or elimination. And it works. It works. Now, there's not a lot of people that know as much about weight loss as I do. My mother was an executive of Weight Watchers when I was around 10. And you might think that's a great thing. Well, we never had a good thing to eat again. We had give an example, bean sprouts instead of spaghetti. But I really studied it, and I used a lot of, not Weight Watchers, but I used a lot of concepts to help my patients, because I know if that person loses that 40 pounds, the back's going to do better. And so it was an important thing, but it's not easy for people to lose that weight.
Mm.
So when you combine what we call a calorically neutral diet that has limited amount of starch and carbohydrates, limited sugars, simple sugars, I should say, and keeps away from the sodas and alcohol. Those four things are the major killers for a diet. And there are other things, fried foods and all that. I don't want to drive people nuts, but four main things is starch and carbohydrates, simple sugar, sodas, and alcohol, and red light therapy. And try to keep the intake calorically neutral as best as possible. Then typically it's somewhere between 1,300 calories to 2,200 calories, depends on the size of the individual, male or female, and that kind of stuff. at any rate, so we're not telling people, we're going to put the lights on you and then you can go home and get drunk every night and pig out. That's not what it's about. It's about that smart diet, add red light, and you'll see very nice success.
Okay, so it's like enhancing the results. Does it stimulate or speed up the results that someone might get when they're trying to lose weight or body fat? Essentially, they're not trying to lose weight necessarily, but body fat, right? So,
Body fat. So what it does is it changes the fat cell wall temporarily,
mm,
makes the fat cell wall more porous, allows the fat contents to leak out, and
hmm
then we move it away to the liver for use or elimination.
yeah. So does that
Simple as that.
with the lifestyle, well, the nutrition stuff that you've mentioned, how much of a difference does it make if someone was just doing the nutrition stuff, but they didn't have the red light compared to doing that protocol with the red light? Do you know what the differences are?
No, because everybody's different.
Yeah,
I mean, we've
yeah,
had people that actually went on very good diets
mm,
and they couldn't lose the weight, and
right.
then they add the red light, and it takes them to the next level.
Yeah,
I
okay.
had this one lady that was on a really good diet, and she lost some weight, but it looked terrible. She had sagging
Mm,
skin and stretch marks, and she plateaued out. And then within 6 weeks of using the lights, man, it looked great after that.
wow.
Not only did we get rid of the sagging skin, that's the beauty of, see, the red light helps with fat loss, but the near infrared tightens the skin,
Mm.
and you will never see sagging. Can't use the word never. You will not see that. You'll not see sagging skin or stretch marks. In fact, the results of this energy on skin is unbelievable.
Mm,
That's why I want to get to the what I consider even more important. Although fat loss is extremely popular, for me, I'm a healer, and that's what I want to do is I want to heal people. And so if they would use the lights combining red, which has some healing qualities, and the near infrared, which is the miracle wavelengths, they would witness and see some unbelievable results. So how does it work? It's not a mistake that we're on this planet with a sun, and that our body developed, again, whether you believe in God or whatever, or evolution or whatever, there is a miracle called the body. It's miraculous. And it's unbelievable that there is an enzyme that is in the membrane of a thing called the mitochondria. And this enzyme is stimulated by certain light waves. So if that didn't exist, this wouldn't work. But the fact is that there's this thing called cytochrome C oxidase that is hidden in the membrane of the mitochondria that stimulates the mitochondria to come back to life. So what I want to tell you about the mitochondria. Mitochondria, as we learned when I was a kid, was that there was one mitochondria in each cell of the
hmm
body. And so, and it was the powerhouse of the body. It's the reason why you breathe oxygen and eat food, to create this really important molecule called ATP. And ATP is the energy of your body. So ATP, proper functioning mitochondria, creating the right amount of ATP will allow you to live healthy. And when you have a dysfunctional mitochondrial system, you will be eventually, that will lead to disease and eventually death. So this energy that we're talking about, the light energy I'm talking about, can reverse that, because
Wow.
that light, the special wavelengths that I'm talking about, stimulates the cytochrome C oxidase to stimulate the mitochondria to come back to life. And the mitochondria is the difference between life and death. And so how much mitochondria is it actually in the body? We were taught there was one mitochondria in every cell, and that's not true at all. In fact, the heart, which has the highest demand for energy, has at least, well, has over 5,000 mitochondria in every cell.
Wow.
To bring it to some perspective so you'll understand, the mitochondria makes up 10% of an adult's body weight. That's how important it is. And it's the essence of well-being and health. So imagine sunlight that we've magnified many times can stimulate the mitochondria to come back to life and help with so many different issues. That's why when somebody says, man, this sounds like snake oil, it sounds like a lot of hooey. I said, it does. I mean, it might, right? Every cell has the mitochondria, and we can stimulate many of those cells. And again, remember the bed, and you can see I have a picture of one right
Yeah.
here. The bed actually allows you to bathe the whole body at the same time. That's the critical part here. We never got the kind of results we're getting now when we were doing local stuff. But when you bathe the whole body, top and bottom, front and back, left and right, and inside and out, with this beautiful wave of energy that can make these changes with high-end medical grade light, then you're going to see these incredible results. Like Jerisha, who had a stroke, and after 8 sessions, she was better than before she ever had the stroke. And Steve, who had contracted Lyme disease when he was 12, and it ruined his childhood, it ruined his education, it ruined his career, which he didn't have one. His education, everything was ruined. And he was highly depressed. When we met him, he was in his 50s, 40 years of Lyme disease. And nobody was helping him. There were days where he had no energy. And it would change his mood and all kinds of stuff. And so he finally got into one of our beds. And he gets out of the bed and he goes, this didn't do anything. And he dismisses it as a bunch of hooey. And then 5 hours later, and pretty much ever since, it's totally changed his life. And so that's one of the videos I'm going to send you. His name is Steve. And it is, just to listen to this, it's like, I get chills because, this was my end goal. My goal was to get that phrase, thank you for giving me my life back. So when Joey, he was the first one to say that to us. Joey had Charcot-Marie tooth disease. And this is a type of autoimmune disease that's weird and guaranteed him a lot of pain every day and guaranteed him not being able to walk, essentially. And after 6 visits, he's on the tread, no more pain. He's on the treadmill and he's great. And he's one of the first ones to say, after delivering these beds, to say, thank you for giving me my life back. And now we hear it plenty of times.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Jessica goes, it's changed my life and it saved my life.
And it's like you say, it's a no-brainer because there aren't any side effects. So like you've got nothing to lose by trying it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow.
And I do want to talk about contraindications though.
Okay.
Next subject that comes up.
Okay, cool.
So we already told you that Arnett, who had the defibrillator in his chest, had no problem getting in the bed because it's a light. It doesn't affect electronics. It doesn't affect metal. It doesn't accumulate in metal. So you don't have to worry about, titanium rods or this or that. Okay. So there are really no contraindications that are real. I'm going to tell you about sort of contraindication. And the contraindication is a legal one. And this legal one happens only in this country because we have, don't tell anybody, but we have too many attorneys. I don't know if you realize that. And they're going to find a reason to sue each of us as much as they possibly can. So if you are in a building and your mirror is too low or too high, they could sue you. Yeah.
Mirror?
A mirror.
Get out of it.
If you go into the bathroom and the mirror is too high or too low, they can sue you. We'll talk about that another time. But I'm just saying, if there's an attorney out there, anyhow, we have a lot of attorneys here. And one of the people we say, let's stay away from are pregnant women. And the reason is, we know that the lights are helpful for the fetus and the mother, but if that baby, for whatever reason, comes out anything other than perfect, no one can believe that that's just the way things go sometimes. Things happen.
Yeah.
And they're going to want to sue somebody. It's one of the most litigious communities, parents of less than perfect kids. And you just don't want to be in that neighborhood. That's the only real, it's not even real. That's the only contraindication that we tell people about. The other contraindications are based on your license. So me as a chiropractor, I can't start advertising that I can cure your kidneys.
Yeah.
I'm a chiropractor. In California, they won't get that. Now, if the person comes into my office for a particular, again, I'm not in practice, but if they were to come into my practice, and their gets resolved, kidney problem gets resolved. I didn't advertise that, but it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have Janet, who had horrible stage 4 renal failure, meaning kidney failure. So her kidneys were practically gone, and she was about to go on dialysis. And after a month of treatment, no more problem, perfectly healthy kidney. So this is not just fun and games. This is serious stuff that it blows me away. And I told you in the beginning, the route to success is passion and belief. And I've never been so, I was always passionate about chiropractic, but I've never been so passionate as I have been with the lights.
Well,
In
if you've
fact, my
seen
staff
this many results, then that makes
oh yeah,
complete sense, right?
yeah, no, if we didn't see results, I wouldn't feel the passion and belief.
No.
So one of my staff members made this for me.
Get in the bed. Yeah.
Because that's my attitude. It's like, I don't say shut up and get in the bed, but I feel like just get into bed. 6 visits, and you'll see a difference. The treatments are typically 3 times a week for 12 minutes. It's just 12 minutes. And if after 6 visits you don't see a change, which I don't know if it's ever happened, but I'm assuming that there are. I mean, like if somebody lost a finger, we're not growing that finger back. But most everything seems to respond pretty nicely to the lights. Now, sometimes some of them might take months, severe Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis. We had a gentleman who had Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy. I had never heard of that before.
I'm surprised you can remember that.
I can't forget it because it's so tragic and so sad. And the guy, it was such a gentleman. I mean, I couldn't believe, I was thinking how I would be crying as I watched my eyesight, his eyesight fading away. He was going blind, and he handled it like, okay, I'm going blind. Well, what it seems to be is a form of multiple sclerosis of the retina. So multiple sclerosis eats away at the nervous tissue.
Yeah.
And what we've learned with red light therapy is that you can halt the progression by getting the person exposed to this light energy. So I don't think we're going to grow back what has already been eaten away, but we can stop the progression. And that's beautiful. Nothing else can do that. So this guy, we saved him from going completely blind. And on top of that, all the other symptoms he had were gone as well. So the migraines and other headaches that he was getting, the insomnia, and some other aches and pains that he had, they were all resolved.
Wow.
So I want to just tell you guys what I'm recommending for each of you is that at minimum, you should try the bed. And to find a location closest to you, you go to our website, which is trifectalight.com. And then in there, you'll see a section that says find a location or something like that. And there are 3 kinds of possibilities. 1, somebody just wants to try the bed. 2, somebody realizes that they have more wealth than health, and they actually want to buy the bed for themselves. And then the third one, which is the most common, is people want to use this as a great business.
I'd love for you to share with us, like for people who can't get access to the beds, do we still, I'm hoping you're going to tell us that we can still get some benefits from near infrared light, near like if we bought a panel at home, or you've mentioned, the more
Actually,
local.
I did a whole video on why home use devices are a problem.
Oh, okay.
And the reason is because they are so much weaker. If someone uses it and they go, well, I don't really notice a big difference. And now it taints the whole industry. They go, well, I'm an expert at red light and it didn't do anything and whatever. So we have hundreds of locations over the country. So you go to the website, we'll try to find a location for you that's closest to you. And if we don't, then it's your obligation to find a practitioner who will get involved with this. 10 times return on investment.
We have listeners in the States, but I'm in Australia. So are you planning on spreading your wings and extending your business?
Australia sets up certain interesting restrictions.
Yeah.
But we're working on that. I have a team we have different teams. We have the European team, we have the Southeast Asia team,
Yeah.
we have the Mexico and South America team. That all of them, it's there's a lot of roadblocks. So
Mm.
we have no problem in the 50 states. A little bit of issue in some of the other areas. So you could call. I mean, you could text or call. Or email me. If you go to the website under the contact us page and just say, I'm interested if you have anything, how can I get a bed in my area? Maybe you can help us. We've had some challenges with Australia.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that there's some resistance from places? Is it?
They don't want to bring in foreign imports.
Oh, okay. It's as simple as that. It's not because you're gonna revolutionize the health industry.
It might be that as well, because I'm going to tell you something. Here's another secret. I don't want you to tell anybody.
Okay.
It's a revenue killer for some industries.
Okay.
If I'm going to say this and take my life in my hands, but reason why hospitals are not gung ho about this is because there'll be a lot less need for hospital stays, for
Mm,
surgeries, and for drugs. And that's not what they're about. They're about making money. And so that's the challenge with that. So I mean, when people say, why isn't this oh, give me an example. We had a lady that had horrible 3rd-degree burns on her leg. I mean, see a picture of it. It's blistering and it's just disgusting. And she was guaranteed by the wound center that it would take 6 months of pain, 6 months of drugs, and 6 months. At the end of 6 months, it would be permanent scarring. And by the middle of the 2nd week, the pain was essentially gone. And by the middle to end of the 3rd week, it was gone. And so, you would think, well, why wouldn't every wound center want to have such a thing in their facility? And it's because they're things about drugs and
mm,
surgery. And until we have somebody brave enough to get past that and say, well, we want to stand out. We
mm.
want to be the exceptional. Plastic surgery is another example. And the reason why we have the best success with the surgeons, the plastic surgeons are not a million of them, but we have some, because the plastic surgery is still going to make us money doing the plastic surgery. And then right after that, they
The
get them in the
recovery
bed,
process.
and the recovery from that is unbelievable.
Yeah. Can
Now,
you talk? Sorry.
I don't have objections with smaller devices, individual
Mm.
devices, but it makes me nervous because typically they don't work
Well,
nearly
the
as well.
impact's not going to be as strong as doing the full body is it,
But
isn't
it's
it?
not just full
And
body.
also like
Full body,
as you said, the technology is advancing so much
right?
that what someone might purchase on Amazon, for example, is going to differ, and the strength of the light and like the wavelengths and that sort of thing, they're going to differ. So you're going to get differing results. Can you talk just about like the benefits of red light for things like recovery? And I know that you've talked about the mitochondria, but like injury prevention, general well-being, skin. These are all things that are really important for like the women in
Of course.
in
So
in
as
my
I had
age
said,
group, that sort of 40s and 50s. Things start hurting a little bit more. We can't exercise quite as much without risking an injury. Things start to sag, as you mentioned, wrinkles, all of the things. So like how does the red light benefit someone with those in those areas?
first of all, I'm 72 years old,
Okay.
and I get into bed 3 times a week,
Hmm.
and I don't have a particular ailment, but I tell people it's about being like a candle that burns bright all the ways from the beginning down to the end and then sputters out and dies and doesn't spend the last 20 years of your life in a wheelchair, can't bathe yourself, can't wipe yourself. I mean, I don't want that. There would be
Mm,
patients that came to my office, and I wouldn't say it out loud, but I'd think, oh God, please don't let me wind up like that. So taking good care of yourself is, of course, very important. But let's talk about the 8 categories that of the business. But I'm going to go straight to one of them, which is performance and recovery, because
mm,
you asked about athletes. So the reason why we have beds in the NBA, we have beds with the Olympic Training Center, we have beds in other athletic facilities, because if the person gets in the bed before their activity, they're going to perform much better.
Oh, really?
I had a guy in his 70s who tapped me on the shoulder and said, I can now swim twice the distance of what I used to be able to swim. Not because his shoulders are better, although they are, it's his stamina is that much better.
Mm.
So it's going to build up your stamina, and your likelihood of even getting injured is going to be much less. But by the same token, these professional athletes, they get in the bed again later in the day after their activity, and they'll recover much quicker. So when they wake up the next morning, when they're used to being sore as could be from that day before, that's not true. They feel fantastic. So
Wow.
they're ready to really do a complete workout or a complete game like they've never seen before. So that's the athletic aspect. And then, of course, recovering from their injuries, we have boxers who, the thing about boxing, in some sports, you may get injured, whether you win or
Mm.
lose. But in boxing, you're guaranteed to get injured, even if you're the winner. And so we have them, several of them, they get in the bed before their bout, like maybe a month before, every day that the place is open. And then they do that again right afterwards. And their recovery, not only did they do better at their boxing, we have a testimonial video that you can watch as well. And not only, and the guy's name is Harry the Hitman Gigliotti, if you get a chance to watch that video. And he does much better, and then he recovers much quicker from using the bed after the bout. So from an
Okay.
athletic point of view, it's phenomenal. From a woman's point of view, less painful periods. Some women at certain age, they start talking about more hair in their brush when they're brushing because
Yep, yep.
hair is thinning out, or more hair at the bottom of the drain. Well, within a month, that stops
Really?
typically. And by the second month, maybe a little bit longer, it starts reversing.
Okay. Skin. Can we reverse
The
the
skin
signs
is
of aging?
the easiest thing. So it's going to be tightening the skin, getting rid of the crepe neck.
Mm.
The fine lines and wrinkles are going to look much, much better. When you go to, I don't know if we have them on the website, but I'll have sent you in the show notes, you'll see
Mm.
some before and afters. And we have this one lady, she was 72 years old, and she took the pictures herself, and the after pictures are incredible. I mean, the fine lines and wrinkles, the jawline, all the fat that was down here is all gone, and she looked fantastic. And so, yeah, we typically have people look and feel phenomenal. And
Wow.
one of the lectures that I give is called something about the fountain of youth. And it's like the fountain of youth. I have a lot more energy, but I've been doing this for a long time.
Mm.
Red light therapy. The bed's been out for several years, and I make a point of not going a week without, unless we're out of town, not at least doing 3 times a week.
Mm. And what about for longevity in general? Like, do you uh, have any, is there any research or evidence that it increases longevity? Or, I mean, obviously, all of the things that you're saying, like with the improvement in mitochondrial function, people sort of recovering from illness and
So let me give you
disease.
an example of what I recommend everyone do. There is a site called Google Scholar. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
You have to know about this. So you
Okay.
go, it's scholar.google.com.
Yep.
And then you put in red light therapy,
Yep.
and you'll see 3.5 million entries,
Okay.
double-blind studies, research papers, articles, all kinds of stuff. And then put in the word aging, for example,
Okay. Yep.
and see what it has to say. I haven't done that in a while, so I don't remember how many different things are about aging, about longevity. My goal is not, with my patients, was never really to get them to necessarily live longer,
Mm.
but to have a much higher quality of life.
Yep.
So I don't think it's just about living longer. It's about,
Oh, yeah.
living to the end
Health
as best
span
as
compared
possible.
to lifespan, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that phrase.
Write it down. Okay. Just before we sort of start to finish up, you've talked about like the amount of sessions you do a week, 12 minutes, 3 times a week. And you've talked about people that have had very significant recoveries from illness and disease. Do they continue to use the beds after that period of time? Like, what's the protocol, and like what do they have to keep coming back?
So, again, I've had 12 practices. I've seen thousands of patients, and this would have nothing to do with red light therapy. And every patient always asks, am I cured? Do I ever have to come back? And I go, listen, you're cured and you never have to come back, but you have to promise me that we're going to be able to put you in a freezer, not let you get any older, and not let you do any of the stupid things that you did in the first place to get here. Nothing is permanent. And so what I recommend with a chiropractic, I always used to recommend once a month. With red light therapy, I would recommend so we start off at the first visit, figuring out what the problem is and figuring out what the target is. What is our goal? What is our intentions? And then we see you 3 times a week until we reach that goal. Then when we reach the goal, we put you on maintenance. Now that maintenance might be once a week. It depends on the person's age. Someone like myself, I'm going to want to do 3 times a week for the rest of my life because I want the highest quality of life. Again, I'm over 72, and I have more energy than a lot of people my age, but I don't want to lose that. And I will lose that. You will lose that if you don't take great care of yourself, or at least decent care of yourself. And if you don't have red light therapy, but I'm a nut. You don't have to listen to me, but I'm crazy about it. Witnessing what I have witnessed and seeing that people have such unbelievable results with red light therapy, which is just an element of sunlight that has been magnified many times and driven into the person's body. It's all natural.
Yeah,
Never
and
a side effect.
in our regular life, we need sunlight every day, right? So it makes
Right.
sense that for this to have the best benefit, getting it regularly is gonna be the most appropriate, because if you shut yourself in a dark room for the rest of the time and don't get any sunlight, you're going to get sick.
But it's
So
also like the dentists. The dentists were very successful in explaining to people that you don't brush your teeth once a year. You don't,
yes.
take care of your teeth occasionally. It's a regular thing. And you'd want to do that because you don't want to lose your teeth. You don't want all that pain associated with, pain, cavities, all these things. So are you willing to do that for your teeth? Are you willing to do that for your body? I am, because, if you did what I did, which is to work on so many people that allowed themselves to let go of them, not take care of themselves. Let's put it that way. And again, as I said, I would think to myself, please, I don't want to wind up like that. And so I'd go out of my way to not do things that are going to harm me. That doesn't mean I never celebrate. Doesn't mean I might from occasionally have something or whatever, but for the most part, I don't drink. I don't smoke, never have. I'm not going to do things to do myself in. And again, too many people don't think that way. I'm living for today. That's all that matters. No, you're not. You're living for later on also. Anyhow, I like taking care of myself. What can I
Yeah,
tell you?
so do I. And what about, okay, so let's before we close, just if you can tell us what your vision is for the future of the beds, red light therapy in general. We kind of touched on that, the health system and how it could impact that. But
It's hard to
what's
have a
your
vision.
vision? Hard to have a
It's tough
vision.
because we're going up against what I've been going up against since the early 70s. I started in school in 75, and since that time, I've witnessed what we're going up against, and it's all about power and money. And
Okay.
it's hard to have, you just do it one day at a time, and you do the best you can. To think that we're going to all of a sudden get everybody to not ruin the environment and not take poisonous drugs and all that stuff, it's not going to happen. Look, I don't know if in Australia what kind of television commercials you have there, but much of the time on television with the commercials are spent on having the average individual tell their doctor what drugs they should get. Do you have that in Australia?
Well, I don't watch telly, to be honest, but I don't know that we do have that kind of advertising. But I have heard that there's a lot of advertising in the US for pharmaceuticals as well.
But it's not just for drugs, it's for prescription drugs. See,
Yeah.
it used to
Okay.
be just drug over the counter
Over the
drugs. You
counter.
could understand they would try to convince you to get over the counter drugs.
Mm.
Now they're advertising to you to convince your doctor to prescribe as if you know better
You
than
know.
him. I mean, that he or she, didn't they go to school for that many years? And where are we to tell, I'm going to go to the doctor. Like, I would almost be resented. I would resent if a patient came in and said, I don't want you to treat me that way. I want you to treat me this way. Well,
Mm.
I've been the one that studied it. I'm the one that knows it. And you're telling me how to treat you. I know how to do it. So I don't know how these doctors feel when they have patients coming in saying, you don't know what you're talking about. I saw this commercial that said I should have the purple pill. You want to give me the green pill. I want the purple pill, even though it costs 5 times more. So we're going up an amazing, difficult
Mm.
uh, company. These companies, they have gazillions of dollars. I just want to tell you about ulcerative colitis. It's a slight aside here.
Yeah.
One of my patients had ulcerative colitis, and they had bleeding diarrhea for months and months, and they were dying. I mean, it was horrible. And
Mm.
they couldn't stop it. They gave her the usual prednisone and Asacol, which has since been taken off the market because it's been found to be dangerous, and all this stuff, and nothing worked. Wound up in the hospital, so dehydrated, and her whole chemistries were all screwed up. Diarrhea is bad enough, but bleeding diarrhea for months and months,
Mm.
horrific. So they put her on a drug for one time. It's a drip, putting her on this drip drug where they, do an IV,
Intravenous. Yeah.
and it was a 1 hour drip. And take a guess on how much they charge the insurance company, and then figure what the copay is. But what do you think they charge for that?
God, I have no idea. But given that you're talking about it, maybe a couple $1,000s.
Absolutely wrong.
Okay.
How about $55,000?
You're kidding.
Let me say it again. $55,000. And the insurance paid about 40 of that. $40,000 for a 1 hour drip.
Someone's making a lot of money out of that.
So how do you compete? How do you compete when
Mm.
there's so much money on this side? And that's what chiropractic's been up against from day one. And it's fine. It's fine. We know the battle. We know what it is about. And that money talks and everything else walks. So
Mm.
you just do the best you can. You just
Yeah.
do the best you can. You can beat yourself up and bang your head against the wall, not going to make a difference. They've got the money, they've got the power, they've got the political power also. And what's unique and different in our country right now is no matter what your slant is in politics in the United States, there's a new sheriff in town, and I'm talking about RFK Jr.
RFK. Yeah.
And he's different. And
Mm.
he specifically has gotten people around him who are more interested in healing than they are about how much money everybody's making. And I don't know if it's going to go anywhere because the political will may or may not be with him, but I'm sure hoping that he can make a difference. And we have people that are trying to make an effort to get him to understand about red light therapy. So I don't know if it's going to happen. We'll see.
Okay. That sounds promising. But in the meantime, you're doing great work with the impact that you can have in a way that you can have it. And as you said, your motivation is when people tell you that you've changed their life, saved their life, made their life better. So as long as you're doing that and spreading that message in your work, then it's obviously that's
I
the
love it.
direction you're heading in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's been a really insightful conversation. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that at some point we'll be able to get those beds in Australia. And us talking about it obviously is getting the word out there more. I wish you
Yeah.
all the
And if
best
you
of
have
luck.
anybody in your audience that can help me, tell them to get a hold of me.
I will.
All right. Listen,
Thank
it's
you
been a
so much,
pleasure.
Dr. Carl. See
Take
ya.
care.